Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Go Bills podcast in our game preview. Today, we're going to talk about the Week 9 matchup between the Miami Dolphins and Buffalo Bills at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. You may notice that we are in a different setting today. Unfortunately, we had some issues with Hurricane Helene as well as Hurricane Milton. So we are on the road right now. We're actually in Batavia, New York. We had a little bit of a break where between the storms that we decided that we were going to take a road trip and we were going to go up to Buffalo, New York. Got to go to some excellent spots in the New York area. We went to a couple of great restaurants. We actually got to experience Barbell Tavern for the first time, and we will have a video that we will be talking about later on this week with all the items that we tried on the menu. And I got to say, guys, you're going to be in for a real treat with that one. It's going to be a great video coming up. But without further ado, let's start off and kick off our game preview. The Miami Dolphins are going to be traveling to the Buffalo Bills in Week 9. This will be the first game back in Highmark Stadium. The Bills have been on the road for about 4 of the last 5 games, and this is one of those games where Buffalo wants to get back at home. They had 4 games on the road. They played in Seattle last week, and Buffalo took care of business against the Seattle Seahawks, winning that game by a commanding lead and took care of what they needed to out west. Now they come back to Highmark Stadium, and they will have the momentum and an opportunity for them to gain a big lead in the AFC East. While we don't think it's over yet, the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets could make a surprise comeback in the AFC East, and I wouldn't be surprised if either one of those teams did. They have a lot of talent on their rosters. So let's talk about the Miami Dolphins and what they did last week. Last week against the Arizona Cardinals, the Miami Dolphins lost, even though they did have Tua Tagovailoa coming back from that game, and they lost by 1 point. It was a heartbreaking loss for them. Tua Tagovailoa finished the game 28 of 38 for 234 yards, 1 touchdown in that game, led by their running back in rushing yards. Achane had 10 carries for 97 yards in that matchup, and they also had their running back Achane come in there for 6 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown in that game. Other players that had a significant role is their other running back, Raheem Mostert, 9 carries for 19 yards, but he actually had 2 touchdowns in the game, which was some of the reasons why the Miami Dolphins stayed in that game. For the Buffalo Bills this week, it comes down to so many different factors, but for me, one of the biggest focal points that the Bills have to work on this week is making sure that they are keeping their running backs in Achane as well as Raheem Mostert intact. The Bills did an excellent job with Kenneth Walker last week, only having him give up 12 yards in the rushing yards. The Bills have to do another great job this week for them to get a win here. On the other hand, the Bills did a great job in their pass defense, and that's led by Rasul Douglas as well as Christian Benford. Both of them, that tandem has done an excellent job throughout the week, and each week being able to take away the number 1 and number 2 options for teams. Going back to the first matchup for the Buffalo Bills against the Miami Dolphins, that was a Week 2 matchup where the Buffalo Bills won that game by quite a bit of points. That was 31-10 in that win. The Buffalo Bills were able to take away Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, only giving up 65 yards in that matchup. For me, it comes down to the same thing for the Buffalo Bills in this matchup. They're going to have to utilize press man coverage in this game in order for them to be able to take away the biggest focal points of their offense, which is Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. For Tua Tagovailoa, he relies on the timing and understanding where Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to be. If you disrupt that timing, that's going to be such a key focal point for the Bills to be able to get some interceptions and make plays on the ball. You're going to have to play tight coverage while also having some of their safeties like Taylor Rapp as well as DeMar Hamlin play over the top in these situations, and you might give up some yardage to the running backs. But when it comes to the Miami Dolphins, they always want to beat teams by throwing the ball. So in this matchup, the one thing that I'm looking to see in this game is, do the Miami Dolphins run the ball? Maybe they change things up. They haven't done that in the previous matchups. They have lost the last 5 matchups to the Buffalo Bills, 14 out of the last 16 to the Bills as well. So this could be a very good opportunity for the Miami Dolphins in what is considered to be a trap game to learn how to beat the Buffalo Bills by running the ball in these games. If the Miami Dolphins don't do that and they come out passing, I think that favors the Buffalo Bills early and often. You see Mike McDaniel every time that he goes up against the Buffalo Bills, he decides that he's going to pass the ball and try and beat him, which is the favorite matchup for the Buffalo Bills each and every time. The Bills have their number when it comes to that, but if the Miami Dolphins want to run the ball and take away some possessions from Josh Allen, that's the way to beat them. On the other hand, for the Buffalo Bills, on offense, it comes down to a few things for me and how to beat the Miami Dolphins. It comes down to quick passes, getting the ball out to their playmakers, not only getting it to their playmakers, but finding guys that are open. We saw last week with our trickle effect with Amari Cooper being in the lineup. You saw guys like Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir. They went for pretty good games. Khalil Shakir had 170 yards on 9 catches. You saw what happened with our guy in Keon Coleman. He had a big game, an excellent game actually in that game. He had 5 catches for 70 yards. It was a great matchup for him. And you've seen the chemistry between Josh Allen and Keon Coleman in the last few weeks. They have 195 yards from each other, and they're starting to develop a really good relationship between the two of them. And I believe that that's going to only get better each and every week for them. If the Bills can continue to do this, then that's going to only make this offense better. Another area for the Buffalo Bills to exploit for the Miami Dolphins is going to be their tight end room. I believe that this is a great matchup for Dalton Kincaid, but not only Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox in this matchup as well. The seams of the Miami Dolphins are going to be open. They're going to be looking at the boundaries for the Buffalo Bills, trying to stop guys like Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman. So you're going to see the middle of the field open up quite a bit in this matchup. Guys like Jordan Poyer that are going to be going up against the Buffalo Bills and Dalton Kincaid, I think that matchup is going to favor them. It's going to hurt for the Buffalo Bills going up against Jalen Ramsey. He's a Pro Bowl player each and every year, and he gets better and better as the season goes on. And I believe that the matchup between Amari Cooper and Jalen Ramsey is going to be tough for the Buffalo Bills. But I feel like they could find some opportunities for them and get the ball to their playmakers, but they have to do it in good timing. And it comes down to that matchup for me is Dalton Kincaid versus Jordan Poyer in these matchups, or even Javon Holland in this matchup as well. I feel like the Bills favor in this matchup, and Dalton Kincaid could have a very big game. For the Buffalo Bills, one area that we don't talk about very often from the offensive perspective is their offensive line, and I believe that this matchup favors the Bills' offensive line versus the Miami Dolphins' defensive line. You go back to the first game of the year, and the Buffalo Bills have done an excellent job from the first game all the way down to this last game of keeping Josh Allen's pocket clean, only giving up 10 sacks this season, and that's a number that I believe is number 1 in the NFL according to PFF. Their offensive line has done a phenomenal job, led by Osiris Torrance. He's been an excellent focal point in the middle of the Bills' offensive line. The Miami Dolphins do not give up or do not have a lot of sacks this year, only 9 sacks. This could be a very good matchup for the Buffalo Bills to exploit and be able to throw the ball on a team that doesn't allow a lot of pressures and doesn't get to the quarterback very often. They are low on the list in sacks for this season, and the Bills could find some opportunities to get into the pocket and utilize some play actions and find their playmakers in this matchup. Let's turn it over to the other side of the ball for the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins offense. Like I mentioned, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. You have to look into some of their other options on their team as well. Guys like Achane, who I mentioned earlier, having a big game. And I feel like the biggest matchup nightmare for me from the offensive perspective for the Miami Dolphins has to be Achane. You have to worry about him being utilized not only as a running back, but also in the passing game. The Miami Dolphins have done a great job of getting the ball to their playmakers and making sure that he is getting the ball out of the backfield. You also see some blocking techniques where they are throwing screens, and that kind of favors the Miami Dolphins in this matchup, to be honest with you. I worry about them throwing a couple screens and the Buffalo Bills not being able to stop them. But for the Buffalo Bills, you have seen almost every player on their roster practice this week, so they are going to be relatively healthy this week. You saw a bunch of Miami Dolphins players out of practice this week. I will get you the injury reports in just a second from both teams. I wanted to make sure I had it updated from each team, but we will see what the injury report looks like so far. While it is early in the week, we do have a few players that did not practice this week for the Miami Dolphins that we need to keep our eyes on throughout the week. Guys like Teron Armstead, their tackle, had a rest day with a knee injury, as well as Calais Campbell being out. Their cornerback, Storm Duck, ankle injury, did not practice. Their tight end, Julian Hill, shoulder injury, did not practice. Tyreek Hill didn't practice with rest day. Javon Holland, hand and knee injury, did not practice as well. Cornerback Kader Kohul did not practice with a neck injury. Emmanuel Ogba didn't practice with a bicep/illness. Jordan Poyer didn't practice rest day. Defensive tackle Zach Sealer didn't practice with a eye injury. There's also some other players that didn't practice for the Buffalo Bills. Alec Anderson didn't practice with a personal issue, so that could be cleared up, and the Bills could have almost every player play in this game, and they would be at full strength, which would be amazing for the Buffalo Bills. Also, they're getting back their star defensive end in Von Miller after a 4-game suspension, so that only helps the Buffalo Bills to be able to get their pass rush going, which has done a very good job in his place. But for me, the Buffalo Bills like I said, they have a tough matchup here, but this is one that I believe the Bills will get by. I have the Bills winning this matchup by a score of 35-27, with the Bills coming out of the gates strong. They will struggle a little bit towards the midpoint of the game with the Miami Dolphins creating some halftime adjustments, but the Bills will pull it off in the end in front of their home crowd in Highmark Stadium. I believe it will be very loud in this matchup with the crowd going crazy. You know how Bills Mafia always is. Shout out to each and every one of you guys that traveled to Seattle. We appreciated you guys rooting on the Buffalo Bills from wherever you are as well. But I have the Bills winning this matchup. I feel like the biggest player of the game for this matchup is going to be Josh Allen, utilizing his legs, finding opportunities, and making sure that he has the ball in his hands and doesn't create a lot of turnovers, takes care of the ball, and does a great job. Let me know your thoughts and comments on what you believe will happen in this matchup between the Miami Dolphins and Buffalo Bills. We love and appreciate each and every one of you guys for watching as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on each and every video that we have. And also, let us know your score predictions for the game as well. We love to be notified of that. Also, keep your notifications open for all upcoming shows that we will have on the Go Bills podcast. We have been absent a little bit, but we are back to full time now, and we will have shows almost every day for you guys. Whether you're a football fan or a food junkie, we will have shows of every nature as well. As I mentioned, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will be back for another episode on Friday. That'll be our quarterback comparison show, where we will have some film study between the two quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Tua Tagovailoa. You won't want to miss that as well. We'll be live again. Actually, we won't be live. We'll have a show tonight with our friend from Red, White, and Bills on his channel, and click on over to his channel on YouTube after the show has been updated for our weekly picks episode as well. This has been Brett from the Go Bills podcast, and we will see you next time for another edition of our game preview. Until then, Go Bills.